Hello, Brother Sewing and Crafting family. Great to see you. I'm Angela Wolf, Brother Brand Ambassador. We have Joanne with us today with a really fun project. You know what's this month? National Friend Week. Well, it's a day actually, but it should be that every day if you ask me. So grab your tea, say hi, say where you're from. It is so nice to be back with you live, and I will be right back with Joanne. Hello, hello. Hi, Joanne.
Hey, Angela. How are you today?
Great to see you. And I see the whole Brothers Sewing and Crafting family rolling in. And speaking of friends, this is awesome project for all of us. I can't wait to see what you're doing.
Yeah, well, who knew that July 30th is designated as International Friends Day?
Oh,
So
it's international, not just national. It's international.
international. So if you have friends from so let's just right now say, "Mwah, we love you, our friends from all over the world."
I think that sounds fantastic. So, Joanne, I've been kind of like cleaning my studio, moving around. You kind of see a new area of my studio where I've got all my fabric. I can't wait to see what your project is because I've got plenty of fabric to start it.
All right, wonderful. Well, let's jump right in. I'll show you the finished project and we'll talk about it for just a couple minutes. Bring that in.
Oh, let me hold on one second.
Real close.
So
Okay.
cute.
A little canvas bag with boxed bottom and a zipper on the top. So just, it's always hard to know which end to go from. Just a little zipper. And one thing you'll see up close a little later is I made a special label for it because that is the greatest thing about our embroidery capability is the ability to customize and personalize. So this is a bag for a good friend of mine who we've been friends for a long time. And I just thought I had to come up with a clever saying. So I was thinking, I wanted to do these birds. And I was thinking, birds of a feather, birds of a feather, birds of a, stay friends forever.
That's awesome. Super cute. So what machines are you going to be using, Joanne? And can anyone that has any Brother machine use this as well?
Great question. Well, I am going to be using the Brother Luminaire today. So I am using my design center to create the bird design, the branches, and the stipple fill pattern. And then, of course, add the lettering. And you're going to see my special effect there that I call a little bubble. But we all know that, embroidery is all about options. And if you've got the ability to do embroidery, you can take something like this, you can look at how it was done, and then you can recreate it using the tools in your toolbox, meaning whatever capability your machine has. So you really could do this with any embroidery design and just add lettering to it. You could just do something pretty on the front or do their name or an initial, whatever you want to do. So I'll be showing you actually how to make the bag from top to bottom, start to finish. So the embroidery part we'll go over and just think about, that, like I said, you can substitute that. But if you have a luminaire or you have my design center capability, think about using it and using those special features to create something really, really unique. I mean, what I've done is I've digitized my own embroidery design using built-in designs from the machine. So built-in shapes.
Perfect.
So it's fun. It's fun.
All right. So those of you that have other Brother machines, I know some of you always ask, I have my design center on there. Can I do this? Well, I'm going to say probably. I know the Luminaire has a few more features than some of the past, my design, but I'll bet you'll be able to make it work. So Joanne?
The basic process is the same. So let me just show you a little bit before we get started. You're going to start with, I'm using the 9.5 by 9.5 inch hoop. So, everything in this project, all the sizes, all the requirements are for the 9.5 by 9.5 hoop. If you use something else, you're going to have to modify it and come up with your own, options there. But what I did is I hooped a piece of canvas fabric. So you can use, it's kind of kind of like a duck cloth weight. So you could use duck cloth, canvas, something like a denim, anything that's got some firm body already to it is what I would recommend for this project, because you want that bag to kind of stand up on its own. And if you look at a lot of ready-mades, they don't make zipper bags out of floppy fabric. They make it out of something with a little bit of body to it. So I did stabilize it. However, there's almost nothing that I don't stabilize. And I used a stabilizer that you may have gotten with your Brother machine when you got an embroidery machine. This is included with a lot of machines. It's an iron-on tearaway. And I have to say, I don't use it very often, because even though it's an iron-on tearaway, it doesn't really tear away that easily, especially when you get it into the stitches. But on the positive side, that gives you a really firm backing. So it almost becomes like an interfacing. And I've actually tested it where I fused it to this. That's what I love about it, is it's fusible. And that means when your fabric's in the hoop, it's really nice and smooth and firm. And these designs are pretty dense when you've got fill stitches there. So that's going to help hold up those stitches and give them good quality. But I've actually tested this and washed it. And it washes beautifully after it's fused, even if you leave, all that kind of remainder in there. So
that's good to know. Then you could use it as a makeup bag, Joanne.
Very good idea.
Throw it in the wash.
Excellent idea. Excellent idea. So then the other thing I did, like I said, a little bit unique, is I used my scanning ability. Now, if you have the Brother app for your machine, you could use the app instead. You would just simply take a picture with your phone or your device and input the image into your embroidery machine that way. But I actually use this scanning method, the scanning mat, and all I did was take a Sharpie marker. I recommend the fine point, ultra fine point, actually. Oh, Sharpie, not a Brother product. Sorry about that.
I was just coming on. Yeah,
a marking pen that has a fine tip is what I use, and I just drew it on regular computer paper. Do not. Right? You're listening, right? Do not draw or write while it's on the scanning mat, because these types of pens will bleed through. So do it on a surface that doesn't matter, and you'll be okay.
I'm laughing with you, Joanne. How many events have we been to where we had the scanning mats, and there's always just one that decides to use their creative pen and draw right on the mat? And you can use a few tips and other chemicals to get it off, but it's really a pain. So don't draw on, and even it will bleed through the paper too.
If you don't do it, you don't have to worry about fixing it. So I'm just going to show you, because I don't think we have time to run through the whole entire process of this. So again, I just hooped a piece of canvas fabric. If you don't use the iron-on tearaway, then simply slip a piece of tearaway stabilizer on the back and float it, or you can hoop it with the fabric. If you're using the Brother medium weight tearaway stabilizer, the non-fusible one, you can hoop that with your fabric because it's soft and pliable enough not to cause your fabric to buckle away. But there are very few other tearaway stabilizers that I recommend hooping with the fabric. So stick with the Brother and you'll be good with that. It has to be a little bit pliable and a little bit soft. And then of course, what I did then is just scanned it, assigned stitches to it, and that's my handwriting, good, bad, or ugly. That is it. And people love to see something that's handwritten because there's nobody else that writes like that, right? I wish I had beautiful penmanship, but it's just never been a gift for me. So
it's cute, Joanne. You do a great job, and you're right. Handwritten notes are almost a thing of the past. Almost, it's so wonderful to have that, and then to be able to put that into your project.
Absolutely. So why don't we pop right over to the machine, and I'll show you how to create the design.
That sounds good.
All righty. Let me switcheroo here.
While she's popping over, don't forget to leave your comments and questions. We will take breaks to answer those as well. And it's so nice to see you all. I can see sunny California. Glenda, nice to see you. Yeah, it is hot and muggy here in Michigan, but you know, I love the sunshine. And I see some of you asking, how was fishing? Yeah, well, it's not related to the project right now, but fishing was great last week. We always need a little summer break, right? All right, Joanne, we can see your machine great.
Absolutely. Okay, you know what? Let's back up for just a second here. And I see a question from Marie. Marie, I will address that a little bit later as far as what stitch I use. But can we just pop up my slide there that I have with the supply list for a second, Angela? Are you able to switch over to that?
Yeah, Joanne, I'm sorry, what did you say?
The pictures that I have for you that show the supplies.
Yeah.
I neglected to go through that. Let's just go through that really quick. So here's what I want you to know. You're going to see me make the bag, and you're going to see the steps, and I'm going to verbally give you the instructions for this. And you can rewatch the video in order to see it step by step. Now, everybody that knows me here knows that I always do a follow-up on the weekend for any live shows that I've done on, during that week. So yes, I will have some additional instructions for you later on, but you should be able to follow just by following the video. However, I thought it would be really good for you to have, on the screen what we need for supplies. So I've already talked about the fabric. I already talked about stabilizing it. And you're going to cut the fabric to fit that 9.5 by 9.5 inch hoop. There's a image of the finished project so that you can remember what that looks like as well and see it nice and up close. But if we go back to the supply list, you're going to see that I didn't give you sizes for the bag and the lining. And that's because you're going to create your design. You're going to cut your finished piece from your embroidered finished design. And you're going to actually use that as a pattern then to cut the back of your bag and your lining so that everything is the same size. So that makes it really, really easy. And then you just need 2 little pieces that are going to cover the ends of your zipper. And let's see, lining piece 2 inches wide. I don't know why I have that cut. I think I might have to erase that one. Cut 1 piece of lining fabric 2 inches wide by, oh, I know what that was. That was an optional idea. I forgot to put the word optional there. If you want to have a little tab on the side of your bag or a little loop, you can cut that and you can insert that as well. That was sometimes we get our own ideas, don't we? All right.
That's right. I got it. And also, for those of you watching, if you're on Facebook, you can share this to your page so you can go back and follow through, take a screenshot of that. And if you're on YouTube, you can share it and watch it again as well. So, all right, Joanne, you're back and we can see your.
I'm ready to get started. I'm going to go through this step by step. So what I started with was going into the set mode of the machine and changing the frame size and the grid. So I'll just click on the arrow here. I'm going to go between my mouse. I'm using a mouse plugged into the machine, and I'll probably be using my finger as well. But see, you have all your hoop selections here. So I know I want to use that particular hoop size. So why don't I just go ahead and select it? That's going to help me with all my design work. And then I went ahead and selected the 1 inch grid because that also helps me to, just get everything lined up exactly where, moving something here for a minute, exactly where I need everything to go. So that'll work out good. And then I'm going to touch OK. And I didn't mean to leave that on the screen. So let's go home. And I'm going to start in the embroidery screen, and I'm going to actually create my lettering. So I found that I really liked this kind of bubbly looking font, font number 11 there, but you can use whatever you want. And I'm going to go ahead and program in the word. So I'm going to start with a capital B. I'm going to immediately change my size to medium because I know I need a medium size. And then the rest of my letters will all be medium. So I'm going to go ahead and program that in. R-D-S. And I've got it written right in front of me so I don't make a mistake. That's my space key. Another space. And I always find that it's harder for me to, slower for me rather to click on here. Oh, what did I do here? Delete that. I didn't want to do that. All right. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to hit space and I accidentally hit return, which you'll see me use in a minute. All right. E-A. T, where's my T? Where's my T? T-H-E-R. All right, now I'm going to use the return key, and that's going to bump me down to the next line. And I love that feature because it makes it really easy to make multiple lines of lettering and have them all perfectly evenly spaced. And I need another space. Make sure when you program in the word friends that you don't spell it wrong. I've been known to type out that word and have it say fiends instead of friends. That's not a good thing. And I'm going to show you another little tip here in a minute as far as spelling. Okay, I want to get that word forever in. E-R. And then I'm going to go to punctuation and I'm going to add an exclamation point. All righty, I'm going to go ahead and touch preview because I highly recommend that you preview your lettering before you go any further. This is going to show you pretty obviously if you have made a spelling error, and then you can go back and you can re-edit this. So I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and touch set. And can you see that I've got the 9.5-inch frame there? I mean, my screen shows the full size of my hoop, but I can see the outline for that. So I want to go ahead and go to edit, and I want to just move that up so that it's just on that first line there. And of course, I tested this out and practiced a little bit to determine my spacing, but you can make adjustments as you go along. But I know that it worked out really good if I was right there. So I'm going to say okay. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into what we call an outline using the stamp option. So you can see that it automatically outlined the area of my lettering, and I could choose to do it outside and inside, which would mean it would fill in within the inside of those O's and E's and all that. I don't want to do that. I want it on the outside. But what this is going to allow me to do is add a fill stitch around that. Now, I wanted to create a little bit of a bubble effect. So I'm going to touch the plus key until I get up to, I think it's 0.168 is what I came up with. But watch how that just grows and it allows more and more space. And like I said, I wanted to create a bubble effect. But if I just kept clicking that, I'm going to get to a point where I look at that and I say, that is just perfect. And this gives just enough room so that that lettering is going to be well defined. I did one sample without doing this, and I found that the words got a little bit lost in there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click memory, and it tells me what it does. It puts it into the stamp pattern list that I can recall from my design center. So I'm going to say, okay. And I want to add to this. I want to create all of my other designs, and I want to add the fill stitching that you saw in the bag. So I'm going to touch add, and I'm going to add everything from my design center. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead to those stamp shapes, and this matches that same icon you saw before. So that will bring up everything that I've created as an outline. You can see I've been practicing this, playing around with some different things. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and say okay. Now it doesn't bring up the lettering, it just brings out the outline, which is essentially the stamp. Now I'm going to go ahead and as I design, I'm going to assign stitches and assign colors to this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the bucket first, because that's going to always allow me then to click on the object and fill it with stitches. And I want that to be just a straight stitch. So I'm going to use a triple straight stitch, and I want that in pink. And I'm doing that because that's going to then match my fill stitch and outline around that area. Now all I have to do is click on the line somewhere, and that will turn that pink. So hopefully you can see that turned color a little bit. All right, the next thing I want to add is my bird. So I'm going to go back to the stamps. This time I'm going to go to this icon, which gives me some open and closed different shape designs. So I'm going to go ahead and click on those birds. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to move them up because I want them to be closer to my bubble. You can move with either the size or rotate key. Both of them have the move arrows there. And again, I'm using my lines to kind of make it match what I did on my actual project. So I'm going to position those birds right on that line there. Now they're automatically colored with the last color that I use. So I want to change that. I'm going to actually tell the birds not to have any outline at all. And I just decided to do those just in a fill stitch. So again, I'm going to click on that bucket. And when I click on those, they turn a dark color, and that matches the icon here and tells me that those are not going to stitch at all. Now I do want that to have a fill stitch, but I'll do that in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead now, and I can either go here or here. Both will take you to the same place. And I'm going to switch now to a satin stitch. And the satin stitch is actually what I used for the label. So we had a question about that earlier. You can change the width of it, but it makes a really nice defined outline. And I want a light green. I'm going to pick light green, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the branches. I've got 4 pieces there because or 3 pieces actually, because there's a little gap there. All right. And now remember, at any time you can go ahead and you can magnify this. So you can use the magnifier, and you can use the pan tool, and you can move it around. You can also use the slider here to move anything you want into view. Go ahead, and I'm going to leave it at that 400%, because I'm going to go now and I'm going to add eyes to my little birdies. I thought they looked more lifelike with the eyes. And I'm going to do that with just an outline for my shape. You could use a fill, or you could use an outline and a fill. Because my fabric was actually light colored, I chose to just do a black outline and have the light colored fabric shine through as the eye. So I'm going to go ahead and click the circle shape. You can't see it because it's gigantic. So I'm going to go ahead and touch size, and I'm going to shrink that down, and soon you will see it come into view. And I want that really small. So I'm going to do that at 0.20. And again, you can see that they are the color of the last stitch assignment. And so I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to move that up. And I just aligned it with the beak, moved it over, and then moved it up just a little bit. You can preview all this and, do it whatever way you want. But usually your eye tells you if it looks good or not. No pun intended. Now I want a second eye. So I'm going to click the duplicate key, and it brings up another eye. So I can, again, use the arrows, move that one up towards that beak, move it over, move it down. That looks pretty good. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead again, and I'm going to assign those stitches. And I want, select that bucket again. I'm going to go ahead and choose black for those eyes, and I'm going to use a satin stitch. And just click on each one of those, and they are going to be exactly what I want them to be. All right, I'm going to go ahead and shrink this back down so you can see the next thing I'm going to add are my leaves. So I go back to the shapes, back to those shapes. I'm going to select those leaves. First thing I need to do is rotate them so that they're oriented the way I want them. And then I'm going to go to the size key, and I'm going to go ahead and shrink those down. And I think if I remember, I had those at 3.36. We'll see if that fits. Okay, now once again, I want to match that up. And if you can see, again, it's right near the area where the bottom edge of my hoop is, so that's good. But I want to match that up with my stems that are underneath my bird. So I'm going to go ahead and increase that size, magnify it, and then move that over. And look how perfect and precise you can be with moving that into position. So I want it just slightly underneath because I want to create a little bit of realism there and account for the thickness. All right, I'm ready now to go and assign stitches to that. So again, I want an outline. I'm going to choose that bucket. I'm going to change the color. I want that light green to match the other branches. And I'm going to click on all of those lines. So I've got the same color there now. the last thing I want to do is fill in the birds and fill in the leaves. So this time I'm going to go ahead and go to the region fill, click on the bucket. Again, we can go here or we can go here. It'll take you to the same place. And we'll start by filling in those birds. We'll make them blue, regular standard fill stitch. And then we just click on those birds. There we are. Now we'll switch to the green. I'm going to use a darker green. Click OK. And again, you could magnify if you wanted to, but I'm just going to go ahead and click on all those leaves. All right, now I'm going to add my fill at the end, but I want to show you, if you go to next, it'll give you the chance to preview this. And then you can go back and make changes if you want. So I really like, before I finish by adding that fill, to do a preview, because look at how clear that is. That shows you exactly what I wanted to do. I've got everything exactly the way I wanted it for this design. So now when I add the fill, I know that it's going to be perfect. And it's just a little bit easier to see this with a blank page on preview than it is if you've got your fill stitches there. And we don't have time today to go through all of these tools. We've had so many different, great live shows with brother educators showing you how to use the tools in my design center, but I'm going to leave everything at the default today. So again, I'm going to return, because now I want to add that fill. Now, before I add the fill, I want to do one more thing. I'm going to go back to the shapes, and this time I'm going to tell the machine I am using the 9.5-inch hoop, and that's where I want my fill to reach from edge to edge. So what I've created is a boundary, and it's going to give me perfect fill for just that 9.5-inch hoop. So again, I'm going to touch the bucket. I'll go to the page here, and this time I'm going to choose from the fancy fills, and I used 012, and I'm going to fill that in with pink. And just one click of the mouse and everything is done. So again, I'm going to go to next. I'm not going to make any changes. I'm going to leave everything as is, but you've got lots of options for customizing, for changing the size, for skewing it, for stitching it in a lower density. I'm going to preview that one more time again. And that is exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to touch close. I'm going ready to stitch now. I'm going to touch set, and it's telling me that I'm going to be leaving here. Now, if I want to come back and edit this later, then I'm going to want to put that into memory. So keep that in mind. We can memorize in this screen, and we can memorize in the next screen. So if you think you might want to make changes later on and edit that, please make sure to put that into memory. But I'm going to go ahead and touch set. It's going to take me right to the embroidery screen. And lo and behold, look at how amazing that is. It actually kept everything aligned because I moved my lettering up to the position where I needed it for the embroidery and for that bubble effect. We'll go ahead and preview that one more time. And that is exactly what you saw on my bag. Pretty cool, huh, Angela?
That looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm reading all the comments. People are amazed that they're like, you did all of this on the machine? Yeah, it's awesome. And that's so cute, Joanne, and so easy.
And it was fast too. It was very fast. Okay, so if you want to maybe pop yourself up on the screen again for a minute, I'm going to switch over to sewing and show you how I put this bag together. How's that sound?
That sounds great. So I see some of your questions rolling in. Don't worry, Joanne, we'll take a break here shortly for those questions. So yes, that is, oh no, she moved. Somebody wanted to see the picture again. I'm going to bring this up. And yes, you can watch this again. I saw a few of you asking that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And you'll watch it. If you're on Facebook, share it to your page. That's the easiest to do. Then you can easily find it on your page. Of course, you could always come back to Brothers Sewing Facebook page and also Brother YouTube. If you're on YouTube, they have a little button on the side that says share or maybe save to what you want to watch later. That's what I usually do. And then watch it on the big screen. So, Joanne, it looks like you are just about set up. I know.
Ready.
Yes, I see some of you saying that you don't have the Luminaire, but if you have my design center, most of this, if not all of it, will work. There's just more fills and a few other extras in my design center, but everything she showed should work.
Absolutely. So you can see there my finished piece, and I've done several. I'm actually having lunch with two good friends tomorrow, so I got a couple more bags that I want to make so I can give them as gifts tomorrow. I bet they'll be surprised that it's International Friendship Day. But what I did when I finished embroidering it is I simply trimmed all of the excess fabric away. I left a 1/4 inch seam allowance at the top edge, and I left a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the sides and the bottom. So that's what you need to do in order to put this bag together. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare my zipper. So I want to show you my zipper. My zipper is way oversized for my piece. You can see this piece here. It's way oversized, and that's what you want. You have to have a zipper that's several inches longer than the square that you finished. And what you're going to do is you're going to lay it right on your piece, and you can see that where the fill stitches end is where my seam allowance begins. And I've got a 1/2 inch seam allowance there. So I took a marker and I marked both ends of the zipper right on the line where my seam allowance is. And then I would take my scissors, and I recommend that you use craft scissors. I've got mine labeled craft scissors. You would unzip your zipper so that the zipper tab is in between those lines. Okay, very important. And then you would simply trim your zipper by cutting it. And you want to trim it by cutting a little bit more. So you're going to cut like a little bit below the line, because what we're going to do next is we're going to add fabric tabs. So the fabric tabs, let me show you them. I've already got these prepared. Is the little pieces that I told you to cut, the 1.5 by 2. And you're going to take the, so it's 1.5 inches long by 2 inches wide. You're going to take it and you're going to fold it lengthwise in half. And you're going to crease that with your iron. And then you're going to refold it again. So you're folding 1/2 in towards the center and the other 1/2 in towards the center, leaving about 1/8 of an inch gap between, because we need to wrap that around the zipper. I'm going to go ahead and trim this zipper. And we're going to need to wrap this around. And we need room for that zipper end to go in there and for the fabric to be folded. And it's designed to be cut a little bit longer. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually stitch across that end. Now, I'm going to give you just a little tip. If you think you might accidentally zip your zipper off, because remember, we have no protection here now. Once we cut that end off, we have no bottom stopper and we have no top stopper. Then I would recommend that you take simple safety pins and just stick them somewhere there on both ends so that you don't accidentally zip that zipper off. So I would put another one here, and now I have no worries. So it's just what I would call a precautionary measure. Okay. So the next thing I would do, like I said, is I would wrap that around and stitch that in place. Now I've got one already prepared, if I can find it.
You sound like my sewing room right now.
Yeah, I had it right. I had it right here.
I see somebody saying that they save all of their zippers from other projects. That's a great way to stock up on a few extra zippers. Great idea.
Definitely. All right, we'll just go ahead and we'll use this one, because I don't know where mine went. I dropped a few things on the floor, and maybe that is where it went. So I'm going to show you next what I have attached here to the machine. I have a zipper foot attached. Now you can use a regular zipper foot for what I'm going to do, but I will tell you, this makes your job 100 times easier. So this is one of my favorite feet from Brother. It is the narrow based zipper foot. It's snap-on. And when you use this foot, you can sew really close to edges, and you'll see me use this throughout the project. If you don't have that, you're gonna need to maybe consider getting an adjustable zipper foot. That would be another option. If you use your standard zipper foot that came with the machine, you're going to have a little bit of a harder time getting close to that edge, because it's got a big wide back end, And that back end is designed really to flow over your zipper teeth. So you want this really is designed for garment style zippers, and the narrow base zipper foot works really good for just about everything else. I'm gonna go ahead and snap that back on. Okay, now one thing you want to be very cautious when you use this zipper foot, you need to either have your needle all the way to the left or all the way to the right when you use it. It is never going to be anywhere else, because if it's anywhere else, it could hit the actual foot, and you don't want that to happen. But look at how that's going to allow me to get really close there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sew right over those zipper teeth. That's the beauty of back stitch. That's the beauty of nylon zippers, is you can stitch right through them. I just have a regular needle in here, so you don't need anything special. All right, so you can see I got that tab end all nice and cleanly finished. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this other end off and wrap another piece around. Now we purposefully cut these smaller, and I'll give you another little tip while I'm fiddling with this. If you wanted to, you could actually use some fusible webbing and fuse this down before you stitch it. It kind of just holds it all in place, but we want to just push those teeth so they're close together, and then sew right over that same end there, just like we did on the opposite one. And this just makes a really nice, neat finish to your bag. If you've ever sewn a bag without doing this, and I certainly have, it's quicker, but when you do it, you have a little bit of kind of a raw end there that is tucked under, and this just makes it really, really nice and neat. So I don't need my pin anymore. I'm going to get rid of that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to need to insert this on my bag. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim these ends so they're even with my zipper. Get rid of all that excess. And you may be wondering, why do we make it bigger? Well, because it's hard enough to get this piece sewn on that little tiny end there. And if you're using a smaller piece, it just makes life harder. So we want to make life easier when we're sewing. So I'm going to go ahead and unzip that zipper. I'm going to now take my fabric embroidered piece and a piece of my lining. And remember, I used this finished piece to actually cut my lining pieces, so they match exactly. And I'm going to put right sides together, and I'm going to layer my zipper in between with the right side of the zipper facing down and the ends right there where my seam allowance is. Now my zipper might be just a little bit shorter. If it's a little bit shorter, that's actually better than a little longer. I'll just take a little bit deeper seam allowance, but I want to center that. And at this point you could use, again, you could fuse it, or you could use, the double-sided sticky tape that's made to wash away, but I'm just going to use clips, and I'm going to clip both ends and work from the end to the middle. It's very important that your zipper tape edge is right along the raw edge of your fabric, and all of those edges match. So take your time to get that nice and even. And once again, this foot is the perfect foot for stitching this, because if I lower that presser foot, just get my tail tucked underneath there, and I ride that foot right along the edge of the top raw edge there, it's going to give me just about a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we're going to go ahead and stitch that. And just take your clips out as you go. Make sure your zipper tape is all the way up at that edge as you're stitching. Of course, I'm stitching about, good 10, 12 inches away from where I would be if I were sitting at the machine. And my stitching might not be as perfect, but that's okay. And I'm going to need to stop, and I'm going to need to zip that zipper up in order to get clearance for the rest of the way. And I'm also using another feature that I love on my Brother machine, and that is the pivot feature. So when I stop, the presser foot goes up and the needle goes up and the needle goes down, so it kind of holds everything in place. And then I've also got a feature on the luminaire that I can tell it to start sewing when I put my foot on the foot control, and I'm using that feature as well. All right, so we open that up and you can see how nice that is. That's exactly what I needed. Now I need to do the other side, so I'm going to flip that out of the way. And I've got my back piece, which is cut to match my front piece. We always want to sew with right sides together, so I'm going to put right sides to right sides. Okay. And then right sides to right sides with my lining. And then I'm going to double check myself because I don't know about you, but when I haven't done something for a couple days.
I'm always, Joanne, I'm with you. I have to flip it, make sure, okay, did I do this right? Because I really don't want to rip that out.
Wait a minute here. Okay, wait a minute. I only did this how many times, you know, but let's make sure I got it right. Let's make sure I get this right.
Hey, Michelle, thank you. Marcia and a few people are asking what was the number for that foot, which that foot is amazing. You know, that thin zipper foot that you're using there, Joanne, it's so nice because you were able to easily move, you know, unzip that zipper to get past so you could finish that zipper off. With the bigger one, it doesn't quite work as slick as that.
You're right. You're right. It makes a huge, huge difference. Okay. Yeah, I was right, but I just said it the wrong way. Okay, we've got right sides together. So let me clarify. Right sides together, right side of fabric, right side of the zipper, and then the right side of my back fabric is facing the right side of my lining. So that is correct. See how that's layered? Right side to right side, and then these two right sides would also be facing one another. All right, so we want to get that again at the same end there. And these clips work wonders. Make sure you have this pushed out of the way. Now you may have done zippers like this where you have top stitched those ends and or top stitched the edges of the zipper. You can't do this on this particular project. Actually, you know what? I need to turn this around because my piece is a little wider than it is longer. So that'll make it match up better. But if you were to top stitch this now, you're not going to be able to finish the seam allowance like I'm going to show you. So don't, don't edge stitch along the zipper teeth. Leave that unsewn. When your project is finished and you tuck your lining inside, it's going to keep that away from the zipper edge. All right, so now I'm going to stitch the same thing. It doesn't matter which side I stitch from. Again, I want a 1/4 inch seam allowance there. And my zipper's got to be open for me to do this. And again, you can see my pivot function is going to let me get in there and get past that needle. The construction is pretty basic and pretty simple. And if you've done zipper bags before, you may have gone through this whole process. Believe it or not, we are almost done. All right, so I'm going to open that up and show you what it should look like. Right sides facing out on the front and the back. Right sides facing out on both of the lining pieces. And then we've got that nice separation there. Now, at this point, you want to make sure that you unzip your zipper to almost the end because you're going to need to be able to get your hand in there. All right. The last thing we're going to do here is we're going to put everything right sides together are the front and back, right sides together, the lining. You want to push your seam allowance in the direction of the lining. Again, I'm going to use clips. You could use pins.
Hey, Joanne.
Yes.
What? A couple people are asking, what fabric is that you did the embroidery on? It almost looks like a suede or something.
It's a canvas. It's actually a canvas. If you remember at the beginning, I said you could use canvas, you could use duck cloth, You could use denim. You just want something with a little bit of firmness and a little bit of body. And then for the lining, I just used quilting cotton.
Perfect.
Just basic quilting cotton. And I have a little saying, when in doubt, buy a batik, because they always look beautiful. And what I tried to do is just blend with the fill stitch color that I used for my, for my front piece. Now I'm pinning these edges along the bottom close together because you want all your raw edges even there. Now, here's where, again, sewing is all about options. I could leave this bag, just stitch around it and leave it as a flat bag. But if I want those boxed corners at the bottom, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to take and cut a piece out that measures 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches for the boxed corner. Okay. Now I'm just going to eyeball it today because I can eyeball 1.5 inches pretty good, just like that. And then once I do one, I'm going to cut this out. Okay, that's going to leave a squared off corner. And then I just take the piece that I cut and I use that as a pattern for all the rest of the 4 corners. So we want to do this on the front and back. And then we want to do the same thing on the lining. So make sure those raw edges are matched up exactly on that bottom edge. Use one of those pieces as my pattern. And we only have a couple more seams to go and we'll be finishing a brand new bag. So I'm curious to know if people prefer boxed corners or flat bags. I like the box because it makes it more roomy.
I love the way
the next thing we're going to do
like that. Very
what's
cute.
that, Angela?
I like the way you're doing the box corners like that with your little piece of paper or whatever as a pattern. I know a lot of people just sew it and then box it, and it's a fast way as well. But I like this; it just looks nice.
Yep, either way works. Either way works. You end up with the same place. You're just trimming after you sew instead of before you sew. All right, now I want a 1/2 inch seam allowance here, and I'm going to go ahead and use my laser function here, my grid line marker. And what I can see is that there's a line shining on there. Hopefully you can see it. Let me change it to, I think green shows up the best. But if you can trust me on this, I've got a line right here. And again, I'm eyeballing it, but my seam allowance for the bottom seam would actually normally be a 1/2 inch because that's what I allowed for. I'm going to make that just a little deeper for the lining. And I do that because that makes my lining pieces just slightly shorter than my outside piece. And I think it makes it tuck in neater. So again, I'm just doing this by visual, but I want about a 3/4 inch seam allowance for there. Again, you see, I've left that same foot on, and that's the beauty of this foot. It's nice and flat on the bottom. So it allows me to sew seams where normally when you've got a zipper foot on, you don't have enough contact with lightweight fabric to sew seams. It's designed for sewing through zipper tape, but this foot is so flat that it allows me to do any kind of sewing I want, including sewing the seams. Oh, and you know what? I already made a mistake. Good thing I have my handy ripper here. I forgot to tell you, you want to leave an opening, about 4 inches in that bottom there. I get carried away when sewing, and I forget that a lot of times. So we want to open that up. Just do it real quick here today because we're going to need that for turning the bag right side out. I think the term in bag makers terminology is they call that birthing the bag. You're giving birth to the bag at the end. So yes, you absolutely need to leave that open. I would normally backstitch there and backstitch there, but we won't worry about that today. All right, so I'm going to do the same bottom seam on the other side. Only this time I am going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and you can see I'm going right along the edge of my fill stitch because that's where I trimmed that outside of that by adding a 1/2 inch seam allowance. we have 2 more seams to go. We're going to do our side seams. Again, I want to line that up, and I'm going to push the seam allowance towards the lining size. I could clip that or pin that to be a little more accurate, but I'm just going to go for it. And here I can actually see that I can stitch right on my line. And I could move that guideline over a little bit if I wanted to, so that it's going to be right in line with my needle. Lots of different adjustments that you can make with that guideline mark. It comes in really handy. All right, and you can see here the reason I left that 1/2 inch seam allowance beyond my zipper tab is because I don't want to include that zipper tab fabric in the seam. I want to sew next to it, not over it. And that's the other reason why we want to have this zipper foot on, because we want to get that right up to that edge. So an adjustable zipper foot would allow you to do that as well. But once again, this foot is so flat that it makes a beautiful seam no matter what we're doing. I can see I'm a little off on the end here. Don't worry about that. Inside of your bag is not as important as the outside of your bag. Nobody's going to take measurements. Of course, when we're making something as a gift, we usually want it to be perfect. So you don't have to sew with a time frame constraint like I have here, which means that you can be much neater and make your bag look as perfect as my sample did. All right, again, we want to get right up to that edge. A little off there, but again, we won't worry about that. All right, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to box those bottom corners. And we do that very simply by opening that up and matching our bottom seam to our side seam. And if you match those two up, you will automatically get that straight edge and those angled corners. And you simply stitch a 1/2 inch seam allowance right over those ends. You do want to back stitch that because that's an area of the bag that's going to take a little bit of wear and tear. So you want to back stitch on that 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, I've got another corner to do here. I'm going to do the same thing. And I like to press mine all in the same direction. So whichever direction you pick, I like to go towards the back so that the bulk is towards the back. Just make sure you do all of them the same. It just lays a little bit more neatly. Yes, you do have a little bit of bulk, but sometimes bulk is okay. Oops, I hit the wrong key there. Sometimes bulk is okay if the bulk is all laying on top of each other. You know, we're not making a garment, so we're not grading the seam allowance. This is a little bit different. And actually in a bag, sometimes that extra seam allowance will help support the bag just a little bit. All right, we're going to do those corners there. And unfortunately, these corners aren't matching up really great. But again, I'm going to look, I'm going to see which direction. I went this direction, so I'm going to go the same direction. So again, they'll lay on top of each other. And if I had a little straighter seam there, that would be a little bit more perfect. Again, it's the inside of the bag, so when you do your project, you can make that nice and neat. One more seam and we are ready to give birth to this bag. Again, I'm going to make sure everything's going in the same direction. And I'm going to stitch right along that corner. All right, so you're going to see in a minute two things: why we needed to leave this open and why we needed to leave the zipper open.
And you might have seen somebody say, why did you have an opening at the bottom? Why can't you put it through the zipper? Well, because first you need to get it all right side out.
Exactly. And if we had that zipper closed, we'd be in trouble right now, because if you try to get a zipper open from the inside of the zipper, not the outside. So if you have to, you know, there have been times when I've taken sticky notes And I will write a sticky note and stick it right on my machine and tell it to tell me to remember to do an important step. And speaking of important step, while I'm wrangling this, actually, we can probably switch cameras and go back to the regular camera for this. But while I'm wrangling this for a minute here, I would highly recommend that you pre-shrink your fabric beforehand. So this canvas fabric washes really, really, really easily. And you can see I'm pushing through that opening on the bottom. And my zipper had to be open too in order to get that to come out. It looks like a real mess when you're at this stage, but we're not too bad here. You could trim out some of that seam allowance a little bit, but actually, again, I kind of like having that extra seam allowance there because it supports it. But a couple reasons why I like to pre-shrink this. I'm a pre-shrinker, you know, us garment sewers, that's what we do, right, Angela? That's what we do. But the other thing is, I don't know if this is going to be washed once I give it as a gift. And I would hate to have it crinkle, wrinkle, pucker, whatever, you know, once it's given to the person as a gift.
Well, another thing is, what if the lining fabric shrinks more than the outside fabric, and then you wash it, then you end up not only with crinkle wrinkle, it could be even worse.
You got it. You could use your favorite poker tool to poke that all out. My favorite poker tool, believe it or not, is a chopstick. I know we've talked about that before. You want to get the end at the top of the zipper on both ends pushed out. Push that all the way in. Now I would need to do one more step to finish this, and that would be to close that bottom opening of the lining once I have that turned right side out. So what I do is I simply fold in the seam allowance. You can see where my ripped stitches are, and I just go back to my machine and I straight stitch right along the edge of there to close that up. If you want it to be neat, really neat, I don't think it matters for the inside of this bag, but you could hand stitch that close with just small stitches. So
yeah, but you know, even if
everybody's getting this,
if you just fold it in and do that, you know, really tiny top stitching, it'll be sturdy, it'll look great, and it's fast.
Exactly. That's what I did on my finished bag. So again, now remember, having that lining a little bit smaller, when I tuck that in, it's going to help pull it away from that zipper. Now you do have to do a little bit of fussy work here. I'm going to take this to my iron and I'm going to press the bag. Now I'll give you another little tip. When you're pressing things like this, if you have a sleeve board, you can use a sleeve board, or I have a pressing mitt, and it actually looks like a giant mitten, and it's padded, and I can slip that into areas like that and move it all around and get a really nice press there. So my finished one is pressed really nice. All right, one last thing. So you can see how those ends cover. Isn't that beautiful, the way that finishes?
It looks so nice.
None of that bulk is in the corners, but the only last thing that I would recommend, and I don't remember if I put this on the supply list or not, is to create a pretty pull tab for the zipper. Now, you can buy pull tabs. My friend that I'm actually giving this bag to, she made me a phenomenal pouch, and she put a special tag on there that says blessed. And you know, every time I look at that, I get, you know, my heart gets warm. So there are charms that you can buy to attach to those zipper tabs. But if you want to, you can also just use a ribbon, an 1/8 of an inch ribbon, and just slip it through the opening in that pull tab and tie a knot. Now I was desperate, and I always say desperation it leads to creativity. And I needed a tab for this, and I didn't have anything cream colored. So I'm going to show you this really close. It's just a little braided tassel almost that I made. And I used it by taking pearl cotton, just pearl cotton that you can buy for hand embroidery and embellishment. And I braided it and then doubled it, slipped it through, and tied a knot on the end. So I've
That's
got a
a great
really
idea.
pretty little tab, and it just matches the fabric.
And that comes in a ton of different colors too. Great idea, Joanne.
Yeah, it works.
And by the way, to answer your question about boxed or not boxed, I think it's a 99.9% ratio of comments that came through boxed is what
Boxed,
they
yeah.
like.
You know,
So if you're watching the replay, make sure you leave your comments there too. I'm just curious because I like both.
yeah, it depends on what you're putting in it. This gives you more room for putting things in. If you do a flat version, maybe you've just got like a notebook or something like that you want to put in there, that's fine. But this allows you to get more stuff. More stuff.
Definitely. So cute, Joanne. What a great project. And I love the way you showed in my design center because I think a lot of times we forget that you can actually do the entire project, the embroidery and everything. I like the way you did your lining too. Very cute.
Quick and easy.
Yeah.
The whole thing just turns out really, really well. If you're in a hurry and you want to use this, and just to use the basic steps to make a zipper bag out of, pretty fabric, use the exact same steps. You can even use the same dimensions. I think it's a kind of a nifty sized bag. It's not too big, not too small. It just, one of those things that you can have a lot of accessories, maybe even fit in somebody's purse. Now, my purse is about the size of this bag, so it won't fit in mine, but slip it in a tote bag, whatever, and you're good to go. And
I carry those all over traveling. I'll put my little sewing supplies. I've got my office supplies, all my camera supplies. Those bags are great. And what a great idea for National Friendship Day. Joanne, awesome project. There was a few questions you answered, most of them as you went along though.
okay.
But one of them is everyone's asking about that foot. And you can go call your brother dealer to ask for that foot. But do you have the number on it? I know
I don't have the number handy, actually. It's called the narrow-based zipper foot. And like I said, it's perfectly flat on the bottom. It's got the little curled toe so that it gives you better visibility and keeps things out of the way. I will do that in my follow-up blog post on my weekend website and weekend newsletter. I will add a few more additions, and I will put a picture and the number of that foot. But call your brother dealer. They'll know what it is.
They'll know exactly what it is.
Yep.
And again, if you want to watch this again, you can start from the beginning, share it to your Facebook page. Be sure to like it and tell brother how much you love these shows. If there's a topic you want, let us know. Joanne, this was a great project. Happy Friendship Day. I think I'm going to have to make one of these. Absolutely.
Happy Friendship Day to you, Angela. You are a special friend to me, for sure.
You are too. And to all of our Brother Sewing fans, we love you too. And we cannot wait to see what you're working on. Look above, do hashtag Brother Sews. Actually, the Scan and Cut could be involved in this too. Do hashtag Brother Scan and Cut. And I also put all of our websites in the scrolling so you can find Joanne, myself, and brother anytime. And that was an awesome project. You're going to have to go back and read the comments because everyone loves this project. And you must read their mind because you answered all the questions.
Oh, great. I'm glad. And you can always, you know where to find me. letsgosew.com. Got it right down on the bottom of the screen there. If you need any help or you have any more questions, I'm here for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Joanne. And thanks, brother, for having these great shows. Until next time, our next live show on Brother is next Thursday. Joanne, you won't believe what I'm making, but one of my nephews, one of my sister's kids, is now at the stage where he's going to start losing teeth. And I've made a few of these little pillows to each one, but Carter needs a Tooth Fairy pillow. And that's what we're going to be doing next Thursday using the Luminaire and the Scan and Cut. So it's going to be at my design center. So another fun project for us. So I will see you on Thursday on Brother. And Joanne, looking forward to seeing your newsletter on Sunday. See ya.
Happy sewing. Thank you for being a friend.
Bye.
Upsize your creativity with the all-new, all-smart Innovus NQ1700E, only from your friends at Brother. Demo one at your Brother dealer today.